Today, we are going to dive into something that so many of us parents find, well, just plain confusing: our kids' behavior. But we're going to look at it through a completely new lens, the world of their senses, to try and figure out what is really going on.
Does any of this sound familiar to you? Maybe your kid absolutely hates the feeling of tags on their shirts. Or maybe the swings at the playground, which other kids love, are just terrifying to them. Or maybe they're the complete opposite, constantly on the move, spinning, jumping, even crashing into furniture on purpose. These aren't just little quirks, they're actually clues.
If you're sitting there nodding your head right now, listen to this. You are definitely not alone. And the most important thing to get from this whole explainer is that this is not bad behavior. It's not defiance. More often than not, it's your child's nervous system literally just trying to make sense of the world. And believe me, there's a reason for it.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with a really groundbreaking theory from a woman named Jean Ayers about our hidden senses. Then we'll get into what happens when the brain's signals get all jumbled up. From there, we'll talk about the crucial role of an occupational therapist, and we'll wrap up with the single most important first step you can take as a parent.
Okay, so first things first, we have to talk about a true pioneer, an American occupational therapist named Dr. A. Jean Ayers. Back in the 70s, she came up with this theory of sensory integration. And honestly, it completely changed the game for how we understand child development.
So we all learned about the big five, right? Sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. But what Dr. Ayers figured out is that there are three other incredibly powerful senses working behind the scenes. They're kind of hidden, but they are absolutely fundamental to how we function. Let's break them down. First up is the vestibular sense. Think of this as your body's internal GPS. It's centered deep inside your inner ear, and its whole job is to tell your brain where your head is and how you're moving. It's the reason a child knows they're swinging, or how they can just sit upright in a chair without toppling over. It's all about balance and motion. Next, we have the proprioceptive sense. This one is all about body awareness. You know how you can bring a spoonful of soup to your mouth without looking in a mirror, or walk up a flight of stairs in the dark? That's proprioception. It's your muscles and joints constantly sending these little messages to your brain saying, hey, here's where your arm is, and here's your leg. And last but not least, the tactile sense, our sense of touch. This is actually our biggest sensory system. And it's so much more than just feeling a soft blanket. It's how we bond with our parents as babies. It's how we learn to hold a pencil. It gives us an unbelievable amount of critical information about the world around us. So these three hidden senses, along with the other ones we know, are just constantly bombarding the brain with information. But what happens when the brain has a really hard time organizing all of that input? I want you to picture the brain as a really busy air traffic controller. When everything's working right, the planes land smoothly, everything flows. But for some kids, that controller is getting overwhelmed. Signals get crossed, messages get misinterpreted, and you end up with a total traffic jam. In the brain, this is basically what we call a sensory processing disorder. Now, this is where it gets super interesting, because this can show up in two very different ways. On one side, you've got the hyper-responsive kid, the one who's oversensitive. For them, a regular hug might feel crushing, a seam in their sock can feel like sandpaper, and a gentle swing might feel like a terrifying roller coaster. But then, on the other side, you've got the hyper-responsive or undersensitive child. Their nervous system is actually craving more input just to feel normal. These are the kids who are always seeking out intense sensations, spinning, jumping, crashing into the sofa, because their brain needs that big feedback to feel organized. So, if your child's sensory traffic controller is having a hard time, who can help? Who's the expert that can step in and help direct that traffic? Well, that's where an occupational therapist or an OT comes in. Specifically, an OT who's trained in sensory integration is the specialist you want. They are total experts in figuring out how a child's brain is processing or misprocessing all of this sensory information. So what does an OT actually do? Well, it's a really cool process. It all starts with a deep dive assessment to figure out exactly what's going on with your child's unique sensory system. Then, they create a custom plan. And here's the best part. The therapy just looks like playing. They use swings and crash pads and putty and all sorts of fun stuff to give the child's brain what's called the Just Right Challenge, helping it build stronger, more efficient pathways. Okay, let's pull all of this together. We've talked about the hidden senses, what happens when signals get crossed, and who can help. But really, the foundation for all of it, it starts with you. This is so crucial. The point of all this therapy isn't to fix a behavior. It's not about just stopping a kid from spinning or forcing them to wear an itchy sweater.
The real goal is to help their nervous system work better so they no longer need to spin to feel calm, or so that sweater just doesn't feel so painful anymore.
So from now on, when you see your child doing something that just seems baffling, try to put on these sensory glasses. They are not trying to push your buttons or be difficult. Their behavior is communication. They are communicating a deep neurological need. Just shifting your perspective from seeing bad behavior to seeing a neurological need, that right there is the most powerful first step you can possibly take. This understanding really is the key. It just opens the door to so much more empathy, to finding the right kind of help, and to finally helping your child feel safe and comfortable in a world that might feel pretty chaotic to them. So just think, what's one small thing you can now look for in your own child's sensory world?